Good morning. You thought I got rid of the laser blazer was the last week. Nah, it's sticking with me. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to NYSA Presents, where you see what you've been missing in 3D. And yes, again, welcome to New York. I'm your host, Johnny Laser. Now, if you don't have a pair of these things, well, my friend is wearing, wait a second, down, little fellow, skinny sucker, right? Thin guy. You'll still be able to enjoy the program. Not everything is in the program is in 3D, and you'll know when to don your glasses, like my friend, when a peculiar line shows up around the images. Now, today, the Stereo Pix, if you look in your the chat, the Stereo Pix URL location will be in the chat. If you are so predisposed to, that's a little, you know what? The glasses aren't off. Apparently my ears are moving, man. Stereo Pix. So if you like to view things in Stereo Pix, you're in business. I'm there it goes. You showed up. I am a little off today. Just feeling a little off. So this is going to be a good excuse. Generally, I have no excuse to say the dumb things I sometimes come up with that really seem dumb now, but in 10 years, they'll seem brilliant. I'm just not going to be around to hear that, I guess. But so I'm a little off today. Little feeling a little bit, little COVID actually, but don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm at the end. Just a third time through for me, so no big deal. But I'm a little off today. Anyway, so today we had a great show. We're going to begin with the Anaglyph Jukebox, and a great favorite. By the way, we played the same places that when I was back in when I was just a child, before I gained all the wisdom that I now have and don't use. Played the same places as Blondie back in New York, CBGBs and all those places. So, roll it, Jim.
I'll get you.
Well, I wasn't Dagwood's Blondie, I think. But yeah, thank you, Joe. Again, a great little dive in there. So, it's my own personal thing where I try to figure out, and I know many of you photographers, you would do the same thing. Like, what is it about the facial features that work that way, that just photograph well? Because you can see, sometimes people can look very attractive when you see them, or I guess that's what the best word to use right now. Yet they don't shoot well on the screen, and vice versa. They don't look that great, but on the screen, it's really an amazing thing that the lens does. It's fascinating thing. My own personal observations are, and I do this. This is technical. This is like science. Okay, this is science. I'm gonna give you science. If I see a woman's leg like that's in a printed, that's like that big, I'm attracted. And I say, what is it in my brain? Fellas, not that. Just as a photographer, I'm going, man, how am I registering that? Like, at what level is that? Like cavemanish, or what is work making that work? And it's fascinating. It really does still fascinate me. I know there are ratios to faces and stuff like that have been developed to kind of explain that phenomenon, but it's really fascinating to me. While looking for 3D glasses, believe it or not, I couldn't find it. And I really didn't want to take them from this guy. So
Johnny Laser, can I ask?
Yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
You mentioned earlier that you were a touring musician. You played in some of the same venues, the same.
Sure.
Could you speak a little bit about what that was like back in the 70s, playing those places?
I'll save that for the after party, but thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that would be a fascinating subject to go over. It really, between CBGBs and those places, I will say that, and I'll bring that up in the after party. But when you went to a CBGB's, it was a pretty dank place, and God, the guy did a great job, Hilly Crystal, I think his name was, right? That owned the place.
Yes, you got it.
And it was kind of a dingy. You would not believe that things were. I guess you would say, I heard you say a little bit about the Beatles before. I like the Liverpool joke. That's pretty good. That was pretty good. But what would it have been like in that place called the Cave that they played all the time? You see pictures of it, it was probably a pretty gritty joint. And the same way with that place.
The Cavern.
The Cavern.
The Cavern. I'm sorry. What did I call it? It doesn't matter. I told you, I got an excuse. I got COVID. Okay. Whatever I called it, you got what I meant, which is really interesting.
There's a famous description that's used as a line of someone's memoir called "A Cellar Full of Noise."
Right. A cellar full of noise. Yeah. A cellar full of noise. Yes, indeed. I know that comes out of a song, and I got a cellar full of noise.
Pat Clark.
Was it?
Petula Clark.
Petula Clark, a cellar full of noise, downtown, or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, because we got a lot of things to cover. Yeah, that's all I had to say about that. Now, it was very interesting. Even going to those places, you were wondering if you'd ever come out with your instruments. Like there was there's a lot of. Actually, I don't know if people realize this, but CBGB's was right below a home, now we call them homeless. It was like bums, because down in the Bowery, that part, there was like a flop house, 25 cents a night. Was right over that joint. And here's the point: it was 25 cents a night. It was only worth 5 cents. Place was tough, man. And when you were standing in line to get into CBGB's, there'd be another line of the bums working their way in for 25 cents. It was pretty interesting. But anyway, let me get on to the matter at hand. Several years ago, I was trying to experiment with 3D, and I came up with an idea. And several of you, I think, have discussed this about shooting two different films, like so that people see one thing in one eye and another thing in the other eye, or better than that. I just pulled these out, and that's the only reason I'm bringing it up, because I was looking for hand-to-glove glasses, like a nut. And I don't have them anyway, and I put these on. Okay, if you can see that, that's completely red, right? And you see a little piece of tape in the middle that I creatively put in, and this one is, of course, the cyan, right? So it's almost like three-dimensional chess. My thinking was, if half the audience got one part of the story, half got the other part of the story, and they were not the same. Like, for instance, you would take like a really like horrible horror show thing on one side, and on the other side, like like kind of maybe a love story, but you would give the men one and the women another set of glasses, so that you'd be sitting there, like the women would be seeing one thing, maybe they might be seeing the horror thing, right? And the guys would be laughing at it like a comedy on the other side. So they'd be going like, wow, how can he be laughing at this? So I thought that would be fairly clever. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I'm sure somebody will.
If I can interject, there is a similar idea has been used for some 3D gaming, where they actually make polarized glasses for 3D TVs. It was obviously a while ago, it's when 3D TVs were going, but they'd have special polarized glasses where two people could sit in front of the TV, and one was left only polarized, one was right only polarized, so each player could see their own race car. So that actually has had practical applications. What you're describing, it has actually been done for, money making stuff.
See that? I thought as a movie thing, it would be kind of fun too to play. And I shot it. I actually shot a demo. I'll dig it out one day. And I used the hallway, and it's a long story. And then we had one guy come out, and but yeah, just looking at things differently, is always fun. Anyway, speaking of looking at things differently, let's keep moving. Let's see. Oh, now we're going to go on a interesting part of the world, because it's been in the papers this week. Right off the coast of Morocco, the I cannot pronounce the name of this place. I do it an injustice, and I'll do everybody an injustice. Nobody will even know. So why don't we just go ahead into Paul Hutchins 3D tour? I can't even think of it. Sorry. Roll it, Jim.
Lanzarote is one of the Canary Islands and lies in the Atlantic Ocean, only 80 miles west of the coast of Africa. It is administered by Spain and is 600 miles from the Istrian Peninsula. The island is volcanic in origin and is thought to be 15 million years old. It was first settled by Europeans in 1336, when the Portuguese built a fort, and over the years has been occupied by the French, the Ottomans and the Spanish. The main town is Arrecife, which became the capital city in 1852. Up to 32 volcanoes erupted between 1730 and 1736, and these lava flows now form a national park. In the early 1970s, NASA road tested its lunar buggy in the national park, as the ground surface was thought to be similar to that found on the Moon. Incredibly, there are vineyards on the island, and single vines are planted in 13 feet wide pits, which are surrounded by small walls which protect the plants from the wind and help to maintain moisture. There are 500 different types of plants on the island, and most, such as these succulents or cacti, have adapted to a climate of lower rainfall. The Spanish artist and architect Cesar Manrique made these cacti into a garden. Manrique also built his home and artist studios around lava flows. This photo surely gives a new meaning to the phrase "through the window." The most impressive of Manrique's buildings were where he made a home, swimming pool and concert theatre out of lava tubes. Lava tubes were left behind when molten lava cooled from the outside to create a harder outer layer. The inside remained molten and eventually reduced in volume, leaving a hollow tube. Manrique became an internationally famous artist and moved to New York in the 1960s. but his homes on Lanzarote remain as museums and art galleries. And that's all for
Thank you again, Paul.
Thanks,
Paul
Johnny.
Hutchins, 3D journeys. See, I just too much for my brain to handle. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Yeah, that was fantastic. How did you pick that place?
Oh, we went on holiday for a walking holiday, probably about 10 years ago. With guided walks around the island, and I thought it would be a good subject to. They weren't made in. They were 2D photographs, actually, made with an old iPhone 4S, believe it or not, which I've synthesized with Leopix.
Yeah, some of them are really. I'd have a hard time telling them that they were synthesized. I mean, those are really nice.
Manrique's house, the one made out of the lava tubes, is something like out of a Bond movie with the villain's house, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, but what got you to go there? I mean, why would you pick that place?
Okay, well, it was on the itinerary of one of the walking clubs that we're in.
Ah, interesting. But how do you get? It's an island. So what do you have to fly in?
Fly there, yeah, fly there. It's only from Britain. It's probably only about 3 hours.
That's a good ride, 3 hours. That'd get me to the Bahamas.
Absolutely.
Actually, that'd get me from my house to the Bahamas. But 3 hours, that's not that short a flight, but interesting. Wow. Now you and before we head on, I just want to add, why weren't you shooting with a W? 10 years ago. Why weren't you shooting with a W?
Well, I did have one, but there were some times when I sort of fell out of favor with 3D and just took normal photographs. I wish I'd taken it with me then. I had a W1 originally as well, still have.
Ah, yes, the old W1. Yeah. Did you still have the W1, by the way?
Yeah, I still have them both. Yeah. And I think rather I had to get new batteries for the W1, but I think it produces a better color temperature images. The W3 tends to go for sort of bluey purple side of things, doesn't it?
I believe the only real difference someone else might know better, but I believe the W3 improved the video resolution. It increased video resolution to 720p, but I think in terms of still images, there wasn't really any difference. Same sensor, same everything. And I think there might have even been some things about the W1, as you were mentioning, as for stills that were preferable.
And it was kind of cool. You could shoot somebody's images to the other camera.
It's a infrared, isn't it? Infrared.
Yeah, it was very clever devices. They were so clever they make neither of them anymore. That was. Yes. I'm sure there's a guy at Fuji who lost his job for that, but those were great, man. Anyway, I thank you once again. I truly appreciate taking me to these places that it's highly unlikely that I'll show up at. But now I've traveled to so many great places. Thank you so much. We all owe you that one, man. That is really fantastic. It's a great job you do. Now we're going to get onto the weird glass. Man, these things are off a little bit. I don't know, man. It's either that or I'm losing that. Anything can happen. It seems like they're off. Jim, now. This is really interesting, and I don't have that piece of paper in front of me, but they're the X-Real. Now,
X-Real,
you saw Jim wearing them, and he's going to explain these fantastic glasses.
I have a couple of slides. Maybe I'll just start with them. What I just put together a couple of images that might help, which I'll just run through. There's a few anaglyphs at the end of this. It's just like 6 pictures, but
yeah. Before you explain it. Maybe give them a little intro to what
sure. Well, I'm actually wearing right now, I'm watching the Zoom meeting. I'm wearing, these are called X-Real Air glasses. They're available on Amazon. The X-Real was formerly called Nreal, so you might see the name Nreal. They're the same thing. What happened was the Unreal company, which has been very prominent in virtual reality stuff for years, basically felt like these guys were, by having the name Nreal, which was basically their company name minus 1 letter, I think they sued and forced the company to change to X-Real. But the short answer just being that X-Real and Nreal are essentially the same thing. The current name of the product is X-Real. These are called X-Real Air glasses. And so I'm seeing 3 monitors. You see, as I turn my head, I'm seeing to my left, here's the screen I want to share. In the center, I'm seeing what looks like an HD monitor with you on it. And to the right is the sharing screen that I'm getting ready to do. And so these glasses, they call them AR glasses. They're really not AR glasses because they don't do what we would consider augmented reality. They don't have cameras to track where things are in the room. They're actually kind of analogous to the old Oculus Go, the headset, which didn't really have 6 degrees of freedom. You couldn't move forward or back, but they did have a gyroscope, and these have a gyroscope. So as a result, I can turn my head around and really have a very productive time with these 3 screens. And I, of course, wanted to talk specifically about 3D applications of these things, which are limited, but there are some good ones. So
Yeah,
shall I
just-
put up the
just-
screen, or
Yeah, you know what?
whatever you think?
Just before you begin. So I want to give them a little something to roll into so they'll really grasp it. Otherwise,
Sure.
it's backwards.
Of course.
Are you wired? Are you wired in with that? Is there a
Yeah,
wire?
I'm just using a MacBook Pro that has all USBs. It's a newer one, it has all USB-C jacks. And so I just basically plug these things into my MacBook. And there's an app that Xreal designed for the Mac called Nebula. They also have it for Android phones, which you have to use Nebula in order to be able to have this effect of having 3 screens that you can turn your head around, because it's doing a bunch of trickery to give me the illusion that 3 screens are floating in the air. Just so you know, and that's what they call AR. So when you hear the term AR from Xreal in their current marketing, they consider that to be AR. The fact that I can, and it's very valuable, it's very important. That a good thing to know is that I can plug these into a Windows computer. There are a lot of devices I can plug them into where what will happen is I'll have the effect of a large screen taped to my eyes that follows me as I look around. I don't like that. I mean, immediately it's, just picture if someone could tape a monitor to your face and it followed you everywhere you went. You can't actually look at anything or focus on anything. There, you can use that with all kinds of devices, though. Almost anything that has an HDMI output, these will serve as a big screen for. So it is nice to know that, but in terms of really being able to do productive work with it, this is the best, the Nebula using apps are the best things, which basically at this point is the MacBooks and certain Android phones. It's good to know that not every Android phone will work. I've ended up settling on the Samsung S21 to test these because that one's totally compatible. Newer, like Samsung S22s, half the chips won't output the video this needs, half of them do. You need this specific format. It's called USB-C DP video out. Not every USB-C device has this. So these will not work with Google Pixels. There's certain things they won't work with. If I want to use them with my iPhone or any iOS device, I don't know if you can see this. This is an adapter that Apple makes. I think it's about $50 that lets you basically take the lightning output of an Apple device. So it could be an iPad, anything from Apple that has this lightning connector, soon to be obsolete, and gives you an HDMI out. And here's also like $59 adapter from Nreal that basically takes an HDMI input and gives you the USB-C out. So what this is to say is I can plug this into my iPhone or my iPad and have this huge screen, but it's taped to my eyes. So you can do some stuff with it, but I much prefer this effect of being able to turn my head around and look.
Last question before you begin. Last question.
Sure.
Are those glasses, is there a wire that we're not seeing? Or
Well, the wire's right here. Do you see it? Yeah.
Now
And
I see
actually,
it.
I took a couple pictures of me just using this with a laptop, just so you kind of see what you look like. And they look like kind of weird glasses, but honestly, it's not like that bizarre that if you were sitting in a Starbucks and people weren't really staring at you, they probably wouldn't even notice. So there's just some guy wearing glasses. It is.
Yeah, I get a lot of that, as it turns out.
Yeah, but it's.
We got to
really,
get your Kangol.
It's not like, it's not like you're sitting in a Starbucks wearing an Oculus Quest. Like, who was that freak? You can basically carry these things. They come with a tiny little container. I don't know if I have it here, but they have a little case that you carry them around in. And, you can conceivably, if you're driving somewhere, you stop at a road stop, sit and check your emails and have 3 screens and be looking at stuff very, very easily. I should mention, and with any of this, in terms of product review, this is very early days for this. You're an early adapter getting these. If I'm using them with a Mac, they work quite well, but periodically I'll have to quit the app and restart it. I've gotten very good at just doing, force quit it, restart it, because things will happen like if I select a certain window, Apple has some very clever window management, which will sometimes totally screw this up. Sometimes the mouse will just suddenly start floating and I'll lose control of the mouse of the app. So it's not perfect, but it's enough that I really like using it. And definitely if I'm traveling, it's really fun to have this connected to a computer. Another good thing to know, and this is true of a lot of this sort of technology, if you're driving, if someone's driving you and you're sitting in the past, I wouldn't put these on while I was driving, but if you're in the passenger seat and you're driving, this is not going to work with the 3 screens, because the second the car turns to the left, your screens float to the left. It's the weirdest thing. So unless you have a trip that is an exact straight line all the way across the country, you're going to have to use it in the mode where the screen is taped to your face and you don't have this, what they call AR flexibility. So, but the things that, to list what the really great applications of this are, if you have a compatible Android phone, it has a 3D viewing mode. So this is actually a way that you can walk around. They come with an optional black, you can be outside, you can put this black thing in front of them that basically blocks out all light. And when you do that, it's like really a very good quality, bright screen. It really looks like a good HD monitor. So you could conceivably take your phone and these glasses and hand them to anyone and say, here's a 3D slideshow, a very, very good quality, certainly competitive with most of the digital viewers people are using. And it's just built into your phone. So that's pretty cool. And then, as I say, there's the application of using it with the Mac. And I can also see, although I haven't had a chance to test this directly, when you put the visor on, and the other thing I've done is I like to be able to see the rest of the world. So I've actually just at times I've tried putting little pieces of electrical tape just right over. There's only about this much of it that's the actual projected image. I'll talk about that a bit more. But you could conceivably, I think, use this if you have a camera or any device that puts out HDMI. It could be actually a pretty powerful monitor for standing in bright sunlight.
Ooh.
I haven't been able to test that yet, though, because I have a Canon camera, but it has a micro HDMI. So I just need to get the cable. So I'll test that and let people know. But
That's helpful.
Wow, like it could really be a very, but I'm sort of mentioning these things just because these are the applications that work. There's other stuff they could theoretically do, but with a product like this, don't spend the money unless it's doing something you want to do. Unless if you just want to have the newest, something experimental to play with, but don't ever buy something like this based on what it might do next month, because you really don't know how this is going to go. These are the things that it's doing well, and it's really a lot of fun with a compatible phone. It's really very cool to be able to put it, plug it into the phone. And they have their own little app, also called Nebula for Android, where there's screens floating around and you can call up a YouTube video, you can call up your email. It's really fun. And it's definitely, the thing I would say about these is this is a kind of a sneak peek at what I think is really going to be very dominant technology in a couple of years. This is sort of a crude version of what Apple is doing with what they call spatial computing. I think Apple is going a lot farther with it, but it's giving you the sense of that you can have either your phone or just a tiny little, I have a MacBook Air that I use with these, and just have a tiny little device, but really spread your field of view with all kinds of information and screens and things. So, there's a lot of potential to this. So if you want to see what's coming, I think this really is, I feel like in 5 years or so, there's not going to be guys at the stock market with these 10 video screens in front of them. You've seen that, someone's on the trade floor. They're just going to have a pair of these and nothing in front of them, because I can't see why you wouldn't do that right now. Honestly, why would you? There's no need to build something like that when you can put on a pair of glasses and you could have more of them. You could have 10 screens, you could have yourself surrounded by them, however you wanted to do it. So this is definitely a coming technology. And I hope more 3D people kind of play with these, because I think they need to get the message from all of us. This has great 3D applications, but right now, for example, I have this Nebula app for the Mac, which is giving me 3 screens. There's no reason why I couldn't say, oh, take my third screen and make it 3D with, split side by side and give me but just no one's asking for that, or they don't see the utility of it. But that would be a dream system for doing Stereo Photo Maker. You have one screen showing you stereoscopic and 2 other screens letting you edit your parameters. So
last question before you begin, because this is definitely going to be, how much weight does it trouble you? They
are certainly heavier than real glasses, but not much heavier, because the thing to know about these is there's no power source in this. There's no battery. Everything comes from the phone. The phone is powering it. There's really just all there is in here is there's 2 tiny little Sony micro LED projectors that are actually mounted vertically right here. And I have some pictures that kind of let you see a little bit of how this is designed. But so yeah, they're heavier than it feels like. God, these are some heavy glasses. I forget the weight of them. It might say here we might see it's 79 grams. I don't know how much 79 grams is, but they're not ridiculous. And they actually come with different nose holders. So they don't bother me. If I'm sitting here doing a work session, I'll have these on for 3 hours, and it's not like, honestly, VR headsets are a lot more annoying to wear than these. Those kind of bug you after a while. They're really, once you get the right nose holder, you can really sit for a couple hours doing some work with 3 screens. So and this technology is only going to advance. They've already come up with a second model of these in China, which supposedly have higher resolution. I don't know if they're coming out over here. And I think the ones in China, they're called the XREAL Air 2s. They have actually automatic dimming technology, so you can have the lenses, I think, respond to the light, that how much they darken the screen or something like that. So this is continuing to advance. And another good thing to know is that there are other companies making these. There's a company called Rockid. There's a few different versions of these. The reason that I find the XREALs to be the most viable version right now is that they've gone the farthest with developing this software that lets you have the screen floating. And I can't emphasize how, you'd have to use these to see, but the difference between having this screen that's just taped to the glasses and this fall, that you have no ability to look around, and having, these floating screens that you can actually kind of have 3 monitors move your heads around, it's huge. And that really has to be, at least I would recommend that as being a very big thing to consider when making an investment in something like this. So XREAL, I think it's pretty widely agreed that XREAL has gone the farthest with getting, because they've been doing this for like 5 years. I got a developer kit of theirs. I think I ordered it in 2019, and obviously it was delayed, but they've been at this a while.
Well, here's the thing. This is the last question. I promise.
We're here to answer questions. So yeah.
You pimped them yourself, right? You did stuff. You put just explain a little about what you're seeing behind the glass.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. What I've done, you actually have the option of putting prescription lenses in them to work with whatever your prescription is. For myself, I just have 61-year-old eyes. I need I do best with 1.75 reading glasses to see. What these glasses do out of the box is they basically they're focused as if there was something about 3 feet in front of you. So what I find is that whatever lets you see your computer 3 feet in front of you, if you put that on your eyes, these will be sharp. What I've done is I've taped just 2 reading glass lenses to them, so they're sitting down straight in front of it. And then what I do at times, I think you actually can see that on these, I have little pieces of black electrical tape that are just covering the part that's reflected. So in effect, what I've done is I've customized these so that I can see the rest of the world, but I don't want to see the world through if I was to take the tape off, then what would happen is in a dark room, it would look very bright. But if I'm looking out at a bright room or a bright light or something, I would see it through the screen. And for some applications, that's effective. Oh, I see John's question. There's the cell phone is the battery and receiver. In other words, the glasses, they can either, at the moment, I'm using them with the computer powering and providing power and light and signal and everything. You're right that the developer kit did have a little thing that was almost like a controller. It had a mini compute unit that you used for testing the developer kit. But their concept was always that your phone was going to be your controller for it, or your laptop. But I think Nreal always intended this was going to be an accessory for a phone. And I think one of the challenges we're having now is that the people who make phones, they want to get into this business. They don't want this company to take, because as I see it, a couple of years from now, it's quite possible this will be your phone. Your phone might mainly be the glasses, and it might be entirely built into the glasses. But this is the direction I see things are going in. So one of the challenges with these is you do have to really look carefully at what's compatible with them now, because for Apple, for example, Apple could easily make it possible for these to plug in and do amazing things. But does Apple want to do that? They're getting ready to come out with their own version of this kind of technology. So they are not, the point being, I guess, is that other manufacturers are not that friendly to these right now. And so that's why I settled on the 2021 Samsung phone, because that was sort of before Samsung started putting roadblocks up, and still everything works pretty well with it. So just something to research if you want to get this to use with the phone. Just look carefully into what phone you're getting.
One more time, and this is it. This is the last question.
Ask questions, please. You're asking a lot of questions, Bal.
Where did you get? Did you read that, or do you assume that that 3 foot, the 36?
Oh, I just tested with my eyes. I mean,
you tested.
No.
They don't have that in the specifications. In other words,
what they do is, but they offer they offer this little frame
Different
that
diopters,
clips right
right?
onto the glasses that you can
Yeah.
send. There's actually a company called VR Optician that's all they do is make optical lenses for, like, you can also get them for an Oculus Quest. You can get your exact prescription put in there so you can put it on your head and see it.
Now you,
And
now-
actually, I have a little hack if anyone is playing with these, is just for me experimenting with them. As similar to the Oculus Quest, there's a sensor basically right between the glasses that sees that you're putting them on and turns them off if you take them off. One way to use them without putting their custom lenses in, it actually works pretty well to put on just a pair of reading glasses and put these over them. It really works pretty well. The problem is that the reading glasses will tend to block the sensor and they'll turn off. But I found that if you either paint the middle of your reading glasses white or put a little piece of white tape around them, as long as they're white, the sensor will stay on and they won't turn off. So
thank you. Now it's
it
time.
looks
Now,
kind of silly. You have to be careful that you're not wearing the same reading glasses, because you look kind of like, why do you have a piece of white tape between your glasses? But that does allow them to work pretty comfortably. And, one of the problems with things like this is you want to share them, but everyone's eyes are different. So in other words, I wouldn't want, if I give the ones I'm wearing right now that have lenses taped to them to someone else, unless they have my exact tendency to need reading glasses for 3 feet, they're not going to get a clear image. So the best thing really is to tell someone, wear whatever it is you'd put on your eye so you see your computer in front of you, and then put these on, and it'll work fairly well.
why don't you start now? I think it's time to share the screen. And
All
I
right,
think,
so
I
tell
think
me if
everybody's got enough to go on.
Okay, yeah, and then we can talk over this. Tell me, are you seeing this? Okay, so anyway, I just thought I would start by showing Amazon's listing for it. And you can see that currently there's a $20 off coupon, and I think that might have to do with them getting the new version ready. So yeah, you can buy these on Amazon right now. They'll ship them to you the next day. These seem to be a pretty popular product. As I mentioned, gamers are really discovering that they can use these. You can use these using this adapter I showed you. You can use these with things like the Nintendo Switch or the Steam Deck. I'm not that game literate, but these are devices that I guess serve as game consoles. So a lot of people who play those things are really having fun connecting these glasses to those and then getting a big screen, and in that case, they're stuck in space. But another product I should mention, I don't have one, so I can't say much about it, but they have another product called the Beam, the X-Real Beam. It's basically another little white box, and what it does is any HDMI or USB-C input that it gets, it creates the effect of the floating screen. It basically does that extra bit of work for it. So I could see that might be helpful for someone who wants to have a device that doesn't have compatible software. But anyway, here it is. You can see it on Amazon. You can get them, and as you probably can tell, one of the things I'm trying to do today is just give a really realistic view of what these do and don't do. So if anyone wants to buy them, they don't get them and say, oh, hell, I wanted to plug it in Stereo Photo Maker from my Windows machine and get 3D preview. It's not going to do that for you right now. Here's a diagram of exactly what's going on in here optically. It's very clever design they've been working on for a while. And honestly, I think this is how most AR products are working these days. You can see that there's a OLED, a little micro LED HD monitor that's pointing down at the top of the glasses. And then there's a whole, you'll see I took some close-up pictures of these. A whole bunch of mechanics with a half surface mirror reflecting against the edge of the glass so that the reflection ends up coming at your eyes, but you can still see the world through them if you want to. I'm actually not, I don't tend to want to do that, but I'm sure for some applications you'd absolutely want to do that. So you can see that, here's your eye's looking into the glasses. There's a monitor pointing down. It really works. I mean, this looks like a Rubik's, like a crazy mousetrap or something, but it does work. I can say that I can put these on and really have a very productive time editing Photoshop images, sending emails, reading things online. The text is clear. It really is as good. Once you have the focus sorted out, it's as good as an HD monitor. It's not a 5K monitor, but it's, anything you can do with an HD monitor, you can do with these, and you can have 3 of them. One thing I wanted to talk about is for viewing 3D images, the way these work, if you have an Android device, you can put, this is a 3D pair that looks really nice when I view them through the glasses, and I wanted to talk about what I had to do to make it look really nice. These glasses do not understand really, their 3D mode is basically just splits the screen, whatever the HD screen you're giving it, in half and puts one half to the left eye, one half to the right eye. So if you have a vertically formatted pair, what's going to happen is it's going to seem to be like way, way past infinity, because it's going to split it. You'll have this sense that the left image is way over to the left, the right image is way over to the right, and it's very hard to converge. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is this is a great way, if you have an Android phone, this is a great way to share your 3D images, but you need to format them to work within its limitations. It'd be lovely if the phone had a convergence control, so you can say, oh, here, converge that. It doesn't know anything about that, so you have to do the work yourself. It works great if you do that, but just as a kind of a cautionary note, you have to kind of work around its limitations to make your 3D images look good in it. But I will say, if I put this in my Android phone, and there's basically what you do is there's a brightness control on the edge of the glasses, and if you press it down for 3 seconds, it switches into what they call 3D mode, where it's showing half the screen in the left eye, half the screen in the right eye. This looks awesome in that mode. Now I have some anaglyphs just, to kind of give a closer look at what these look like. If anyone, put on your red blue glasses, if you're interested. This is just to show what, you're asking about the cable. Here's just a simulated me sitting in a coffee shop with my MacBook Air and getting 3 screens to look at. And so you see that, they look like, who's that guy with the funny glasses, but they don't look ridiculous. It doesn't look like I'm wearing an Oculus Quest, or, it really doesn't stand out that much. I've had people not really notice when I'm wearing them. And you can actually see, you can sort of see the projected screen that's reflecting out. In this case, the glasses don't have tape over them. So I am in the mode where I'm seeing the external world, which I might want to do if I was sitting in a coffee shop. I might want to make sure I see if the waitress is coming or whatever. And so as in another picture is I put on the black shield. They give you this black cover. And in this mode, I could be out in the brightest sunlight and still have a very clear image to look at. And if I was, wanting to show people some 3D slides from my phone outdoors at a shoot or something, this is probably what I would do. Here's just a close look at, I tried to make a couple of images of what the glasses look like. And you can see there's a wire that's coming out of the left side. That's a USB-C cable. And that's what you plug into either the computer or the phone. And you can see, I have some others that I think get a little bit closer in. Here you can see the mechanics. There's basically, they have internal lenses at an angle that are helping to deal with the birdbath optics to get that reflected image to project off the front of the glasses. And that's where those little lenses you see in there, if you get their prescription snap-on, it just snaps right over that. And you can see there's like a custom nose pad. I have a couple other ones to the right of the nose pads that come with it. So this is basically what you get for your $359 if you use the coupon. And then here I tried to get in close. This is not a great, it's hard to really convey this, but you can see that here we're looking at, you can actually see the little micro LED projector at the top. And then you can sort of see how it's reflected and how it sends out into the world. So anyway, those are my images. I just thought that might answer a couple questions just to see the actual thing, what's there, what it looks like. But I'm having a lot of fun with these. They certainly don't do everything, but this is certainly a preview of the future, and highly encourage anyone involved in 3D to let the people who are making these know we'd really like to be able to have any screen we put up have the option of being stereoscopic. That let these people know that this is such a great application for these things to serve as it seems quite possible to me that you could plug these into something like the QCam Ego with the right, if they had the right output for the USB-C, and get a nice bright 3D preview of what you're shooting with the thing, or any other camera for that matter. Not necessarily happening now, but this is the direction these things could go in. So they really do work for the things I mentioned. They're great with a Mac. They're supposedly working on a Windows version of the application to let you have the screens floating, but I think it's probably been a little complicated with just all the different mechanics Windows has for showing multiple windows in their operating system. And anytime a product like this is trying to deal with the Mac or the Windows universe, it's a challenge. And it wouldn't surprise me, as much as I love my Mac doing this, it wouldn't surprise me if the next version of Mac OS makes this break. That's just the way.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So just buyer beware. You're going to buy these things if you want to play with them. You're on the cutting edge, and I predict within a few years you'll get your Samsung phone and it'll have something like this from Samsung, fully compatible, but won't work with anything else. And that's this will be part of the experience of having a phone or even having a computer.
Well, the last question again, well, before we go to the after party, and a lot of this can be dealt with at that point, but have you tried, and you gave a great explanation, by the way, that was phenomenal. And it's a confusing technology. So you did a great job at clearing it up. But taking a, it's got a USB, I mean, an HDMI in the cables, does it have an HDMI in? It has
Well,
an
you have
HDMI
to
in?
buy this adapter. So in
Okay.
other words, the thing that you get for the 359 from Amazon just has a USB-C plug. It's just basically the glasses. There's no power. It's entirely designed to be an accessory to another device. So it is good to know this is not like an Oculus Quest. It's not a standalone device by itself. It's not going to do anything. You can buy this adapter for another $59. It's going to let you plug an HDMI cable into it. And I should also mention, this is run on battery and it only will run for about 3 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because
Well,
I mean,
well-
it's having to do some stuff to get power into this.
Have you tried, and I know all the technical stuff you went through, it's
Mhm.
fantastic, Jim. But have you tried plugging like a side-by-side that, that would come out with, like it comes out of a Blu-ray player for that matter, and just plugged it into that thing and see how it,
I have not tried it with a Blu-ray because I don't know if there are any Blu-ray players that have. That's an
HDMI
interesting
out.
question. Well, can you get a Blu-ray player? And I know there's people here who know a lot more about that topic than I do. Can you get a Blu-ray player to give you a side-by-side non-squashed from an HDMI output? I think you need some other hardware to make that happen. I know people have talked about doing that because it should work. One of the problems these guys have, and it's another thing to know about, is there is a whole issue with digital rights management, DRM. So as an example, if I want to watch Netflix on this thing, if I have their 3-screen, when I'm looking at my Mac with 3 screens floating in the air, I'm basically going through the Mac's displays, then going through Xreal's own software to make that happen. Disney Plus or Netflix will not show a signal that way because they basically, the DRM signal blocks their video. So what's funny is, like, I can put on Netflix and hear the sound, but I won't see the picture. But if I quit Xreal's little software that gives me that power, if I quit that, so I'm only seeing just a direct screen taped to my face, all that stuff will work fine. Disney Plus will work fine. Netflix will work fine. So there is another issue with DRM basically is limiting, and I can understand the point of it is they don't want people just to be able to record their signal onto flash drive or whatever. They don't want you to be able to send it to your friends. So it's very limited how USB-C can send DRM material. But it's good to know that you can use these. You can call it Netflix. It's just you're not going to have Netflix floating in the air. You might be able to do that if you get their other add-on, which is called the Beam. But part of the issue with this is how much crap do you want to be carrying around to do basic things? I have to say, for me, this is a fairly reasonable amount of crap to be carrying around. It's just this pair of glasses, and I can plug it into my laptop or I can plug it into my phone. But when you start getting into all these other add-ons,
Right.
and another thing that's good to know is these do drain the phone battery a lot. They're draining, they're basically sucking power from your phone. So there is an add-on that I'm thinking of getting, that basically an adapter that gives you 2 USB-C ports, one you can charge and one you can watch. But it has to be, there's only certain ones, there's only a couple adapters that will do it, because your off-the-shelf one from Amazon will not send this video signal. It's a specific format. I'm sorry, I should have written down exactly what it's called, but it's something like USB-C DP, digital projection. It's a specific format that only some USB-C things. So not just any splitter will work. You have to get one that's designed to pass through the high-end video signal. So, but that's a thing I think I will get. But I'm a little skeptical about getting this other device to make other output float in the air. It's a good question about Blu-ray. I think you would need some other software to get that. You would need another device to split what's coming out of the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray, of course, is sending out their own proprietary multi-image format, right? Where the 3D Blu-ray is 2 images sort of superimposed, if I understand it. So you would need something to convert that. Or in a perfect world, they'd come up with an app to do it. Someone else might.
You know what? Let's do a credit roll. And we'll take
Okay.
it to the after party, because
All right.
I'm sure people have a load of questions to ask, and I
Okay,
can't think
yeah,
of all
it'd
of
be
them.
fun to chat about them. All right, so let me go, and I need to roll the credits, so.
Yeah, so
give me just
stand by. Good.
It's taking me
Very
a
good.
second while I see if I can get that to happen.
We'll see you on the other side of the after
all
party.
Very
And
good.
in the meantime, I'll keep chatting away until I disappear.
No, I think I can do this. Let's see. if
Oh,
I
this is
can-
great. Then we're heading to the after
Mhm.
party, and Joe Padota, you pick it up from there.
Oh, in
We even
fact,
get a
I think within 6 seconds, 5 seconds, we'll be closing the
4,
show.
3.
That's
2.
exciting to know when that's happening.
See you later.
New York, New York, so good they named it twice. New York, New York, all the scandal and the vice. I love it, New York, New York. Now isn't it a pity what they say about New York, New York, New York, so good they named it twice. New York, New York, all the scandal and the vice. I love it, New York, New York.
Okay, there's that.
When it comes to the Blu-ray, it probably wouldn't work with a standard Blu-ray because they're frame packed, although some offer side by side. But you can make your own, and it doesn't have to be squeezed, however you choose to do it. I know our fellows in England usually keep the side by side unsqueezed to use with prism glasses.
Yeah,
But
which is
the
what these
advantage
would
of
need.
that-
Yeah.
The advantage of that is you wouldn't need a 3D player because it's just basically a single frame that's split, so it can play off of any player.
And how is that? Is that an extra piece of hardware that does that, or how are they doing that? Or is there specific Blu-ray players that will output that type of signal?
Well, it's just a 2D signal, so it's the convergence would be done with your receiver.
Okay. Yeah, because that would certainly be a fun out. And of course, there's another product. What's it called that's just come out that's specifically designed to play back Blu-rays? You know, the sort of like more like closer to a VR headset. I forget the name of it, but it's been getting a lot of
The
Boogies?
Sony Walkman.
there you go.
Before we go too much further, I have to ask a question. I had to chime in. Because I was saving it for the after party. You're a bunch of smarter guys than me. Jim, could you put up the Amazon shot that you had before? Could you
The
share that?
Amazon,
Yeah.
just the one, what to buy?
Yeah, the buying one.
All right, yeah, let me see if I can get that to
I
happen.
put the link on in the chat during
Okay,
this
yeah, no, I'm
presentation.
sharing this. Let's see, I'm still getting my
It's okay.
share screen basic. And there, that should be up there. You seen that?
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the advertisement. But if you look down where it says about this item, right? You
Mhm.
get down 1, 2, 3. It says easy to wear. 7. Does anybody know what that's some kind of German.
Must be an EU thing, it
No,
sounds like.
Rhineland certified eye comfort. What the hell? Did anybody ever hear that? That's the first I'm hearing. I never heard that before.
Yes, I know about it.
Oh,
This
please.
is Greg Podner.
Thank you.
TUV Rhineland is a company that does compliance of electronic or other devices. Compliance, different countries have different requirements to import products. Like the USA has the UL compliance for electronics. TUV Rhineland does the qualification of products for import into different countries.
Very interesting. Wow. So that you put on the Oculus and all that stuff. Do we ever see that Rhineland certified? I'm just curious because thank you very much. That's a great answer. So it's like a compliance thing, but why would these guys be using it? Let me roll back a little bit. Is that a requirement in Europe that anything that hangs on your face has to be certified by the Rhineland certified, the TUV? The TUV.
Well, I believe what this implies is that certain countries require stereoscopic equipment to provide eye comfort.
That's the Europeans.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well-
What? That's great. Of course, of course. You'd want it to be, you know what I mean? Of course, you'd want it to be comfortable, but there's nothing like that on the Oculus. What shit did you snap it on your head and be happy, right? Anyway, thank you. That was a great explanation. Thank you. I'm
You know,
glad
it
I
was
asked.
interesting. There was another issue with Oculus where they weren't allowed to be sold in Germany for quite a while because of the whole issue of Facebook. I think it had to do with Facebook requiring you have an account. Oh, and Mark Jeffcock, please chime in. Are you, if you're not, let's see, ask to unmute. Mark Jeffcock knows a lot about these. He's actually developed some stuff, so I
Oh,
was
man,
hoping
that's
he would
great.
chime in. So you should be able to talk now, Mark. I asked you to unmute. Is that working?
He's not unmuting. So yeah, now he is. Uh-oh, he's on and off. Uh-oh.
Yeah, this happens. I think I probably just muted him again when I was trying to get.
Well, hopefully you didn't throw him out. That would be, I hate when that
I've done that
happens.
too.
We've done that. We've all done that, right? By
let's see.
accident. No
You
offense.
should,
If
be able
was
to, you
thrown-
should be able to talk, Mark.
Yeah, okay,
Awesome.
finally through. So I am on holiday at the moment, and my wife limited me to only 3 kilograms of technology. So I don't have my Nreal glasses with me. Okay, this will spiel for a bit, but it will get relevant again. So when I bought my Nreal glasses as they were, they only linked to telephones at the time. So I got a Samsung telephone that went mobile, which worked with them. And I desperately thought I needed to earn back the money on the ridiculous purchase price for them. So luckily, what they were doing, they were running a write an application for the Nreal Air glasses. So I thought, well, what can I write? And I wrote 2 applications in the competition. One of which was, why don't I just turn these glasses into Anaglyph glasses? Seemed like a nice, easy way forward. One lens would go red-ish, one lens would go cyan-ish, and it would just be from a high-tech glass to an Anaglyph glass. It doesn't work. I'll put a link in the video in the chat later, which tells you why it doesn't work. But basically, it doesn't work because the color is being projected down onto you as an overlay of what you're seeing, and therefore it's additive color and not a subtractive color that you're getting when you're looking through a lens. Okay, that was number 1. The second app I wrote, which actually won, hey, 3rd prize in the art section and earned me back the cost of buying the glasses in the first place, was Bruno Zaffoni's stereo of various medieval art pictures. So he and Dave Heiser have put these together. Bruno does all the art and Dave does the aspect ratioing and getting them into stereo. So there is one app now on the Xreal store, which is looking at 75 medieval pieces of art, but all of that art is now in stereo. And that did work quite nicely. I just sent one image to the right eye, one image to the left eye.
Now, when you
So
did
if
that,
you've got any other great stereo ideas, I could probably write you another app, Jim.
did you have to concern yourself with the convergence? In other words, right off the box, I've been finding if I just throw stereo pairs at this thing and put it in its 3D mode, it does bizarre things with convergence because it doesn't really know what they are. I'm just kind of curious. Did you have to focus a bit on that?
So what I did was I put the 2 images in exactly the same place in Unity and used Unity layering systems to say only one of these goes to the right camera, only one goes to the left camera.
Mm-hmm. So you solved
didn't have
that
any-
issue. Yeah.
Didn't have any convergence problems at all.
Great. Yeah, no, I mean, there are wonderful stereoscopic viewing devices, just other than your app. I don't know if a lot has been done with that. Certainly, if you use their Nebula app, there's a couple bits of it that are very nicely stereoscopic. The intro screen for it is this beautiful 3D cloud, scape coming at you. And they have, if you're using Nebula on the Android phone, I don't know if you've got that on the phone you're using, there's a little, they call it a virtual pet. You basically have this funny little monster that floats around in stereo and, comes closer to you and you can play with it. They call it your virtual pet. So, but the potential is enormous. So yeah, no, I'll definitely get that app. I've just been.
Potential is great. That particular version, I just sort of stopped using it after a while. I mean, you obviously got more into it, and the fact it was it only linked to my telephone, and my cable kept falling out of my telephone. It just didn't, my mobile. So it just didn't work terribly well for me. Now that it can link up to various different devices, it may be more practical.
I think what will be huge for them, and I think they're trying very hard to do this, is when they get the Windows app completed. And it seems like they're finding some challenges because they have it for the Mac where you can have the 3 screens and they're, they call it AR. It's not AR, of course, but there has to be some term for the fact that I can look around these 3 screens and they're not following my head. Right now for Windows, it's going to follow your head everywhere. So it's very limited in its usability as a viewing device. So I think if they can get that to happen, they'll suddenly be a lot more interested in it because so many people use Windows computers for their work. So I hope they can get that to happen. They seem to be working hard on it, and I have no doubt that a big problem they're having is that as Windows itself is updated, the way that it deals with external displays is probably also somewhat updated. As far as I can tell, the way it works on the Mac is it seems to create just a single long 3-monitor or 2-monitor display on one screen of the Mac, but then this thing then enlarges it and spaces it across these 3 different screens, because there seems to actually be just one it seems to be one gigantic Mac monitor.
I haven't seen that mode.
Yeah,
I see the Nebula mode, but I haven't seen the
well, if you have an M1 or you have access to an M1 Mac, it's worth trying. Just you can get the Nebula app from Xreal. It's free. And I don't think I'm not sure if it works on older MacBooks, but if you have a Mac that has a USB-C out, you can at least, the glasses should work. You're probably going to end up getting a message to do a firmware update on the glasses themselves. But as far as I know, any Nreal Air glass that's ever been made should be updatable and able to work.
Okay, so I'll unmute and just try and find some of those old YouTube links about things that don't work and things that do.
Yeah, no, that'd be very helpful. But yeah, no, that's very, so your app, you will find your app on the Xreal store. They do have like a little
oh yeah, I don't want to go into and then after winning the whole 3rd prize, they then sent me 19 pages of lawyer speak which I had to sign. And then they said, well, signing it isn't enough, can you prove that you are you?
Oh dear.
Have a notary sign it. So I had to go along and find a British notary that would do it for a reasonable price, have a nice document made, sealed with a wax seal, and swear on the Bible that I was me before Nreal would turn up the money.
But it's great to hear that's still on there, because
Dorothy, I think Dorothy wants to chime in.
Yes, I tried to find the Nebula on the website, and it just says it cannot be reached. So then I went to the developer thing, but it looks
you can
like
actually get Nebula. I believe you can get it on the Google for Android. You can get it on
okay, so that's where I put it in the chat then during your presentation.
Okay.
For the Google Play, but then for Mac.
Well, I mean, I got it for my Mac on Xreal's website, which they seem to be fiddling with their website a bit right now. So it might be they could very well have disabled it, but it's on their website is where I got it for the Mac. It's just basically a page called Nebula, one of the tabs on the Xreal website, and you have the option to download it for Mac. And then that's been pretty straightforward. I mean, as I say, it's not bulletproof. Essentially, if I'm doing a lot of work with it, about once every half hour or so, I'll have to stop because either the mouse has now lost control, or I opened a window and Mac's window management suddenly made everything get garbled. But I like using it. It works well enough that I really, if I was out traveling around on a road trip or something, I'm sure I would bring these just so I could, if I had to check email while stopping for lunch, I could have a bunch of screens and see them very clearly and all that. So, Robert, are we having to ask people?
Bob has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We should be able to unmute everyone. This is where Dave, well, looks,
I'm
Robert, you should.
unmuted. I'm
Yeah, well,
unmuted.
please talk. No need to raise
Yeah,
hands.
I'm just curious. Thank you. I just want to know about the image quality. I mean, this is the kind of thing, instead of getting an Oculus or something like that, if I had a pair of these glasses and they actually worked with the Blu-ray or just looking at video, would it would it project give the illusion of projecting a large image in front of you, or is it just?
Yeah, see, that's funny. Their marketing tries to describe how big the image is. The quality, it's an HD monitor. So it's, I forget what is it 1920 by 1080? It's, you know, there's a certain specification that is an HD monitor, and this definitely is that. And so, for example, I'm looking at it right now, and I'm looking at Zoom, and it looks the exact same as if I had not a 4K monitor where I would have more detail. I'm seeing a little aliasing, but I'm looking at the Zoom screen. I can read all the text. I can read the chat. And I do fine editing Photoshop with this. I mean, that's what I use it for all the time. The question about Blu-ray playback, I don't know. I haven't done it, and it seems like that's going to take a little bit of, maybe someone out there has. There's a very active Reddit community for this, and they also have a Discord. I haven't heard of anyone doing that. What people are doing, there's YouTube videos about gamers who have been able to use some plugins for Windows gaming that basically create two cameras within the gaming playback software and give you stereoscopic gameplay on certain Windows PC games. I don't know about, it'd be great if it and I actually should suggest this to them. They're very open to suggestions. They're listening very closely. That would be a great app of all of us who have 3D Blu-rays. If we could take this thing and get it to play back 3D Blu-rays, that would be a very attractive, because the screen looks great. I would describe it as looking like my LG 3D TV. And in other words, the LG was basically an HD 3D TV. The newer one, the nice one we were playing with the last couple of years ago, is much higher res. It's a 5K 3D TV, so it's not that. Also, I should mention in the link, Mark Jeffcock has given us a link about his very interesting experiment with using these as anaglyph glasses, which does get into filtering and all that. Yeah, so Robert, definitely, what these things definitely are good for is if you want to show 3D images from an Android phone, because they do that really well. I've played with that, and they're really good for giving you virtual monitors off a Mac, hopefully Windows soon. I don't know about the Blu-ray thing. I wouldn't buy them for that, put it that way, unless you have a good return window, because I think it's going to take some hacking and fiddling around to get that to happen. But I hope someone does get that to go, because it seems like a real natural application. It would be a wonderful way to view 3D Blu-rays.
Or
So
any
there's-
3D entertainment thing, because if you have to wear 3D glasses anyway right now.
Yeah. Mhm.
So if you're sitting in your living room and you're wearing glasses like you're wearing, and you're seeing in front of you, something that looks like a 6-foot wide picture in 3D, that would be a lot more comfortable way to do it than Oculus or anything like that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
this means you could see a video game like Pong in 3D?
Well, I don't know about Pong, because Pong I don't think was designed in Unity, right? I mean, someone could probably go into Unity and design. Actually done
know
that.
what I'm
taken
talking
some-
about.
Oh yeah, I know.
The game with two paddles and one.
Yeah, since that wasn't
one
designed
big
in the 3D
pixel.
engine, but someone could, as silly as that sounds, I know people have gone back and created Unity versions of Galaga and Asteroids and some of these other games that are 3D. Of course, no doubt the early days Pong type video games were never 3D, so there's no 3D to show from them.
There are software programs like Stereoscopic Player that can take 3D in any format and output it in any format. The only problem with something like 3D Blu-rays is they have copy guard protection on there.
And that's a problem.
Stereoscopic Player avoided that. So you'd have to maybe use a program to make a BDR that has the copy guard removed to play it in there. But theoretically, it can be done. It's just now you're adding lots of extra software. I would only, this would be an attractive thing if I could lie in my bed and watch a virtual screen off the ceiling and, just totally relax. But you were talking about the 3 screens, and then I'm thinking there's 3 different screens, but you're now sounding like it's actually one panoramic thing spread over the 3.
When I'm saying that, that's in terms of that's just my theory of how they accomplish this using the Mac OS. In terms of what I'm seeing using it, I see 3 discrete screens. I can move stuff between the screens. It's behaving just as if I had, to my experience right now as I'm sitting with it, is they're like maybe 27-inch. I have 3 27-inch monitors surrounding me. It's just that I can only see, it's someone has put a shield in front of my face, so I only see one full monitor. And then as I turn around, I see this one. In other words, the field of view is about 50 degrees. So you're not having an immersive surround thing as you would with if you have on an Oculus Quest, you do get that. But then again, you have an Oculus Quest, you have on this massive thing that you could really not go in public with. Another thing I should mention, because since people are asking about 3D applications, when I plug this into the Android phone, and I didn't want to go on and talk about these until I got a working Android phone, because that's kind of its ideal companion. If I have it plugged into my Mac, I can't get it to give me 3D mode when it's in the Nebula version, when it's giving me the 3 screens. And if I use this little adapter to use with an iOS device, such as an iPhone, and basically anything that's going through this HDMI adapter, currently their 3D mode doesn't work, which is very frustrating because so many signals that come out of HDMI, I would love to be able to plug an HDMI computer or something in here and push this little button and have the screen give me 3D. As with a lot of other things, this is very early days for this. So I'm really trying to emphasize, here's the thing, it's things it does do not buy it if it's not doing what you want, because there's a lot that it doesn't do yet. And so that's a perfect example. You plug an HDMI source into this thing, and for the 3 hours the battery gives you, you're getting a nice big screen in front of you, but you can't turn that screen into 3D. You can turn an Android phone into 3D. So that's the one application that's good for that. But I sure hope that they will increase that capability over time. It seems likely that they will, but a lot of it also probably depends on the consumer demand. So I was actually really happy to see that gamers are finding they can watch their games stereoscopically, because there's a market that's going to really drive some interest to this company. Like if you get gamers finding something really cool, that's going to sell a lot of these and hopefully increase the interest in the,
There's a question in the chat.
Can you do
from Mike.
picture in picture?
No. I mean, I can do anything that you can do with 3 screens attached to a MacBook. So I can certainly, in my MacBook, there's nothing to stop me from opening another app and putting it right in the middle of my first app. It behaves exactly like any monitor on a computer. So I mean, I often have lots. Right now I'm looking at my screens, and I have, my email software has a Safari internet browser behind it, and there's things popping up. So that you can do, but not the traditional. And no, I haven't done anything with the Stereo Pi. Good question. I don't know if anyone has. The whole thing is, in order to connect to Stereo Pi, the Stereo Pi has to have that specific, and let me see if I can find the term, because I should have written it down. There's a very specific USB-C output that has to be happening. It's called USB-C DP alt mode pass-through. Without that, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to get a video signal. So that's one of the limitations. And so I'm not sure if Stereo Pi is able to do that particular trick or not. I wouldn't be surprised if someone has figured out a way to make it happen.
Dorothy, you had something? We heard you chime in. Dorothy?
There was a question in the chat, but Jim was answering it with Stereo Pi. Although I want to ask again about the beam. The beam is to connect, for example, game. It's more for games then, right?
Well, I mean, the beam has a specific function, and I have to say this is one of the things that's been frustrating about Xreal's marketing, is they don't always tell you exactly what these things do. What the beam does is it allows you to have right now, the only video signals that will give you the floating screen, what they call AR space. I kind of hate using that term because this isn't really augmented reality. Like when I move closer to the screen, it doesn't get bigger because it only has 3 degrees of tracking. It's not tracking my Z plane. So it's not really augmented reality, but they call it AR space, which is the fact that my 3 screens are floating in front of me. That only works right now with a Mac with Nebula software or with an Android phone. However, if you get the Beam, you can take almost any HDMI source, plug it into the Beam, and then have one screen floating in space. And I could see a lot of applications for it. If I was a gamer who just absolutely lived and died for my Nintendo Switch, then that would be really cool, because that would mean I could have my Nintendo Switch and have the screen floating. One thing that gamers have said is you can get this mode, you just plug it straight in with USB-C and you have the screen taped to your eye. It's almost impossible to play a shooting game, because the whole way a shooting game works is you turn to anytime you turn to point your gun, the entire gaming field has turned with you. So you really can't play a shooter game. So that's what the Beam does. Is the Beam is an attempt to give that flexibility of having a floating screen, and it's $119. So I think you'd have to be really keenly interested in whatever it was. If I was a dedicated gamer, I could see that being a very valuable function, because for them, all these gaming consoles have USB-C outs or can be adapted for that. And apparently it's a great addition to the gaming experience to have this massive screen floating in front of you. So and I think we'll certainly see more and more of this. This will be another application of this kind of technology. I'm sure it's not going to be long before we see dedicated glasses coming with, Nintendo coming out with their dedicated glasses you wear just to use their gaming console that gives you a massive screen floating in the air. But that's what the Beam is. The Beam is basically a thing that lets various HDMI sources float in space. And it really is, you have to try it to see, but I think that really, it sounds like a minor feature, but it's really critical if you're trying to do if you really want to use this for a period of time for productive use, you really do need that. And that, once again, is why I tend to think these are a more viable product than the Rocket or the other AR glasses that are out there that don't have that capability.
From when you bought it and unboxed it to where you got comfortable with how it worked, how long did that take?
Well, that's a good question, because I was pretty busy at the time. This was a couple of weeks ago. I had some deadlines I was fighting. And I remember I sat down and said, I'd really like to see how these work. I can give myself 1 hour. If I can get this on my computer in 1 hour, I can't spare more than an hour. I'll have to wait till next week. And I was within an hour able to download Nebula for Mac, figure out how to use it. And Nebula for Mac, it has a couple controls. There's one thing where if you click on this menu at the top, you can click on a little bar that lets you position where your 3 floating screens are, which is very critical. You sort of have to figure out where you want them sitting in space. And then it's very clever the way they've designed it. You have control over how far away your virtual screens are and how big they are. And that actually just has to do with how your eyes converge. So I found for myself, I want to use, I have them a meter away from me in their jargon, and I have them at just not enlarged. And that kind of really behaves. My eyes really see them as just big monitors that are sitting right over my laptop. And it all has to do with convergence, but I could theoretically say, oh, make these screens huge and put them 9 feet away. But it would be, then I would have to be sort of reconverging my eyes to look at my keyboard when I type and then looking out in space. But if I was watching a movie, I might like to have the feeling that it's floating out. It all just has to do with how it's converging. So one thing I'll say about these guys is they're obviously very aware of stereo convergence issues, because they built into the software the ability to have something seem to be far away, seem to be close. So they definitely have an understanding of all that. Did I answer the question? I forget what the question was.
So did I.
Hope I answered. Oh, it was how quickly? No, it really was a very quick. It wasn't a huge learning curve or anything. It was really like I gave myself an hour. It's like, you have an hour to get this thing working, or else you have to put it away till next week. And I was within an hour able to plug it into my Mac, download the Nebula software, figure out how I used it, and have my 3 screens and be working with them. So yeah, it was very, very quick. And same thing with the Android phone. Basically, as soon as you plug it into a compatible Android phone, you'll have the whole screen floating in front of you. You don't have to do anything for that. And the Android phone just sees this as an external monitor. It says, oh, you plugged in a monitor to your phone, so.
And the tape and the reading glasses, that was just convenient.
That was just experimenting with it for a while.
Yeah. You knew you were going to do that, right?
Yeah, and that took a while. And basically out of the box, what I recommend just from my own experience is that whatever it is that lets your eyes be focusing on something that's about a meter in front of you, whether that's you put on reading glasses, whether it's a prescription, whatever it is. Oh, good. And Mark Jeffcock has put a link up about the app he made for XREAL. This is going to be something very interesting to watch. But whatever it is that lets your eyes do that, you just put them on your eyes and then put these over that, and you'll at least be able to start. And then you might, I think it's another $100 to put the little add-on prescription lenses. You can spend a lot of money with this stuff. So, but you really don't have to. Once you have the basic glasses, there is lots of stuff you can kind of, and there's a question about the Nebula that does look like Nebula installation. Let me just see if that is the right link.
Well, I think another big takeaway was I'm still back there at the TUV certification. Wow.
I don't think that actually is the right link. Let me see if I can find the link that we want to use. Yeah, I actually hadn't noticed that, John. But that is very interesting that and these were initially, these initially started being marketed in Japan. We got them about 2 years later than everyone else did. They had the developer kit. I'm going to put the link in the chat that is the one I used to.
Yeah, because I couldn't find it.
All right, well, here, I'll put the link that works for me. I don't know if there's a. Oh, I'm sorry. I sent it directly to Tony Brown. I don't know why I did that. I'm going to send it to everyone. Here it goes. This is the link that I used for it. You see that? So if you click on that, you should get to their little screen on XReal's website that lets you download. And you see they have Nebula for Windows coming soon. It doesn't exist yet, but they're hoping.
Yeah, that's the place I couldn't find on the website.
Okay, do you see it now?
Yep, it's
Okay.
working. Thank
Cool.
you.
Okay, yeah, that's where you get it for Mac if you want to try these.
Fascinating.
Well, John, can I change the subject for just a second? You're at the beginning, you were talking about your idea of having glasses. You got 2 movies being projected at the same time, and you can pick which one you want to watch. And I have a copy of Science and Invention for August of 1921, which has that exact idea in it.
Nothing new under the sun, man. That proves it for sure. I was gonna go to you because I'm looking at what's behind you, and I went, oh my God, that's exactly it. But
What's behind me is a cartoon in the New Yorker for their caption contest, and it is exactly what you're talking about. Half the audience is wearing just cyan, and half is watching red. Some are watching, but all the captions that people sent in were awful, and none of them had any concept that this had anything to do with 3D.
yeah.
And I was thinking I should have sent this cartoon to everybody and said, come up with a really good caption for it. You could do a caption. Would you like to do a caption contest? I'll send you the picture.
And that's pretty good. We ought to have that. Shouldn't we have a caption contest? Oh my God, that's low hanging fruit. And plus, you guys are much funnier than I am. That's excellent. Thank you. We're up for 2 things. But
Okay.
yeah, we need a caption. We do need a caption contest. That'd be so much fun. But yeah, but I did say, I showed the anaglyph, and I must explain, it never really worked well with that, only because you couldn't quench it. But in polarized, it actually functioned. And we did a little bit with it. But
Did you see Robot Monster at the convention? That the 3D feature Robot Monster.
I did not.
They had that one section where they're projecting 2 completely different movies in the left and right eyes. Like this is some big deal. It's just a cheap way of eking out more footage, as far as I'm concerned. But that's what would happen with what you're talking about.
I still think it'd be a great comedy, especially you put, and you do it this way. You make it so that the women get one and make them. Forgive me for that. I guess I can get punished these days, but it was just so much fun.
Well, you remember there were old early optical toys where you have a little round disc, and has a picture of a bird cage on one side, and the other side has a bird. And then when you
spun it,
when you spun it, you saw them both together. So that something like that might be interesting with the technique you're talking about.
Yeah, Johnny, you're talking about is called retinal rivalry. It was a fun thing, favorite of Ray Zone.
Yes.
And it's the kind of thing you didn't like when you saw it in Goodbye to Language. with two eyes going in separate directions.
Right.
So it creates a flicker, and so you can highlight some things to make it. Ray Zone used it to make things glow when
Sure.
he did the comic book pages, and but you can't sustain it for long. And of course, William Castle used it in 13 Ghosts, where you would see the ghost through the one lens and not through the other. So you had your choice to see the ghosts or not.
Yes.
I suggested to Steve Gibson, because he only went back to make his first digital 3D movie to get rid of all the anaglyph glasses he had. And I was suggesting he should have used it during the Trump campaign, so that you could look through one eye to be red state and one eye to be blue state, and choose which way you wanted to look at the world.
I thought you were going to say that Trump is kind of orange, and then through the other eye, but I got you.
I have a picture
That's
that
tough color on anaglyph.
I have a
Tough on
picture-
anaglyph, yeah.
I have a picture that a friend of mine took of Ray Zone. He did a cha-cha, and Ray, it's just a head and shoulders kind of shot. And Ray deliberately had his eyes open in one and closed in the other. So we made a stereo pair out of it, but it's that retinal rivalry kind of a subtle version of that, you know.
Well, Bob, you of course are familiar with back in the 1950s, the original Joe Kubert and Norman Maurer. They had a thing that they would call blinkies,
Yes.
and several variations on that theme using retinal rivalry. I remember one where it was like you followed one story with one color, one eye shut, and what, you know, or it was the same story, but then you chose the ending depending upon which eye you looked at.
Oh,
the
yes.
end. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I just thought the greatest goof would be with, you know, like a couple is sitting there and one is seeing a horror movie, one is seeing the comedy, and the guy is laughing hysterically at what's going on. And meanwhile, there's this gory scene of, oh, thinking, man, what's with this guy? But I thought that would be kind of a fun aspect of it. And we actually shot a thing. I between this show and other stuff in my life, I have to go back in my archives, because we've done the most dumbest, wonderful, fun, because you're an experimental bunch, and we experimented the hell with it. I have to just start digging that out.
Wait a minute. You're going to tell people about your years playing in the clubs?
Oh,
with
the club, yeah.
Blondie, and the show is almost over, John.
Yeah, well, I'll have to pick it up. I'll have to pick it up next week. Listen, you know, what I'm going to do after the show's after we run the credits, is I'm going to sit in my comfortable rocking chair and pull a blanket up to my nose and just stay there for the next 2 days, because man, I am but yes, I could do a little bit about that. Well, anyway, the bottom line is there were a bunch of creative people, and often what occurs in those situations is, you know, it plays better in history than it plays live, you know, because it's I wouldn't have guessed where all that was going to go. It just looked like a lot of fun and goofiness and danger, you know, because it was edgy.
Okay, is it here's my memory. I went into the bathroom once, and then I went outside to pee in the alley.
Yeah, I could have 100 of those stories, because I played a lot in New York at that point. And nobody ever got paid. If you're lucky, they got paid. You know, you couldn't live off that, unless of course you were sleeping in your car, if you had a car.
So maybe next week, Robert can talk about this OPIC Skyrocket 3D live stream. Robert McAfee.
Yep.
I'm gonna put you in a spotlight there.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Thank you. We always count on Dorothy, man. Stereo Doro. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, please.
I only know as much as I posted. So you know as much as I do if you follow the link.
Hey, Robert, that's a great shirt. That's great. I only know as much as I posted. Anyway, thank you, Robert. We'll look at what you posted. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. You know, thank you, Jay, out there, our unrequited hero who's out there, who's making it all happen in VR. Thank you, and thank you for anybody else who showed up. And we're going to try to figure out a way to fill that platform, to fill that subway platform. And Joe and Paul and Did I miss anybody? No, I don't think I did. If I did, all I could say is thank God, because I told you, that's what you say. Well, thank God, this covers everybody. But that, yes, thank you so much. I said Jim. I think I said Jim. A little foggy. That's all right. Yeah, good. Jim, are you ready to roll the credits?
Yes, I
Me?
think so. I
Okay.
might still get the countdown, but I will do it. All
Cool.
right, thanks. That was fun. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute. But I got to give my official cast off. Oh, we're good. I got 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 3 seconds.
I'll
Well,
give you a countdown then.
perfect. Yeah, run the countdown. I can fix it. Well, another show has come to an end. Thanks again for stopping by to see what you've been missing in 3D. See you next week. Until then, don't be stingy with your camera shutter. Share your joy. Share your joy. Count your blessings.